Hi folks, in this little tutorial I just wanted to show you some very basic Jinja 2 utilities or functions that are helpful. So what you need to do is first go into the module, becoming a Jinja 2 master, and then go to an assignment, and then download this zip file which contains the code base, the demo code base. So I'm going to open it up right here in Visual Studio Code, and what you have here is two views, and we're just pretty much first of all interested in this first view. And if you look at this view, what we have here is one thing that Flask can do for you is you can not only just sort of render templates, but you can also pass variables into the templates and then do stuff with those variables. So right here at the top, what I've done is declared a variable, my fruit list, and put some fruit in it, right? And then I'm just passing it to the template like this, right here in this line. And then we can actually look at the template. So let's open the template, the home template, and as you can see, the way you can output the variable is just with these two double squigglies or double braces, and it'll appear in your page like this. So let's look at the page right here. That's how it renders. It's just the array. Of course, you wouldn't want to do that to an end user. You'd probably want to iterate through it and format a little bit. So you can do that also in Jinja 2. So we have here, instead of using the double braces, we use a brace and percentage, and you can run pretty simple sort of control structures. And here we're just iterating through the fruit list, just like you would in Python. The sort of similar syntax to Python, for fruit in my fruit list, and then we're outputting the fruit, right? Fruit here. With a link, and we've also added this conditional. Okay, so if fruit equals limes, then color it green. Otherwise, just output the fruit. Let's see what it's doing. You can see here it's just outputted a list, and then we've colored it green if it's limes. Yeah. So pretty easy stuff. You can just examine that syntax for yourself. You start it with a for loop, you end, unlike Python, you've got to end it with an end for, same with a conditional, if, and else, and if. So it differs a little bit, but just remember to output variables, you use double braces. To actually run, control structure type of code, you would use braces, percentage signs. Actually, if you want to also do comments, a comment would be like so, a brace, and then no surprise, like that, kind of. So it feels a bit similar to Python. By the way, when you do comments, this is a comment. You would want to use this kind of bracing when, for example, you want to comment out Jinja 2 syntax. If you try to use like an HTML comment, Jinja 2 won't recognize that comment, and it'll still think the code is there. So if you want to comment out actual Jinja 2 code, use this syntax. Now, if you wanted to iterate through a dictionary, you can do that too. Here I have well, it's still a list actually, but it's a list of not just strings, but a list of dictionaries. And I've declared and defined my person list here, and then I'm passing it right here. And then we can go back to our template, and we have here we're iterating through the person list, and then so it's very similar to the list above, only now to access the actual the keyword values in the dictionary, I just go person.name to get the name. Here I'm trying to do person.age. Let's look at that dictionary again to see what we're looking at again. So the name and then the age. So you can look at that syntax a little bit more on your own and examine that that way of accessing not only just sort of list items, but then if that list item is itself a dictionary, you can use this dot notation to access the values of particular keys in the dictionary. Let's look quickly again how this renders. So here we're iterating through a dictionary, and then I'm just sort of outputting the name and age of each of the dictionaries in the list. Now here again, I've just done exactly the same thing in this next piece of code. Notice it's outputting the same list, right? Again, right here in this code right here. But if we look at the view, or not the view, if we look at the template, here's my template. This code is a lot more succinct than this code. And that's just because what I've done here is I'm running a macro, which I've defined, and basically a macro is basically like a function, and you're passing parameters to the macro. In this case, the person.name and the person.age. Notice that I'm not putting it in curly braces. I don't have to do that here, not in the actual parameter, although I am surrounding the parameter, the macro with the curly braces. We can go look at my macro, which is defined in macros, and you can see here my macro, and you can just look through the syntax yourself, but I'm defining the macro right here with the parameters, and then I can add all the HTML. So all that stuff that I'm doing otherwise doing in the template, I'm doing in the macro here. Notice though, to actually get the macro to run, I actually have to use this syntax. I could put it actually in my template, but since my home template is being inherited from the layout template, I just put it at the top of my layout template so that this macro is available everywhere. Okay. So let's go back to home and see what else is on the list that I can show you. In addition to just iterating through dictionaries or iterating through lists and using macros, you can also sort. You could also sort your list a bit before you just choose to iterate through it. And what I've done here is we're having the same syntax for person in my person list, and then we use something called a filter, and we're sorting on the name attribute so that it sorts by name rather than by age. Let me just show you the documentation for those filters. I've actually included a link to them right here in the documentation, but if we go out to that link, you can see a list of all the built-in filters, and we're using the sort filter. You can examine the documentation there, but essentially what I'm doing, actually notice how in this sort, notice this is just unsorted. Zoe's actually appearing first, but now I'm sorting by name, and you can see everything appears in order here. If we go back to our page, what I've done here is applied the sort filter, and then I'm just designating here what particular what attribute I'm going to actually sort on. So you can do that too. Let me get rid of this terminal because it's kind of in the way here. One last thing I wanted to show you is this is some functionality you'll want to know for the assignment. Is like in the assignment, what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to. I'm going to give you a list of people's names and their grades, and you're going to have to show them in a grade book, and you're going to be able to have to allow the user to sort the grade book either by name or by grade. And when you do that sort of sort, you're also required to highlight all grades that are below, I think, a 20. And to be able to do that, you're going to have to be able to, run a conditional somewhere in your code where you're going, is this grade below 20? Well, the grade is going to actually be registered as a string, um, and you have to see whether it's below 20. So you're going to have to cast that string to an int. And I'm just showing you how you can do that here. So one thing you can do in Jinja too is actually declare variables. So here I'm setting a variable. I'm setting another variable here, but one's an int and one's a string. If we let's see what these output. Here I have my string variable and my int. They look exactly the same. And then if we try to compare these, here we're doing a conditional, and we're seeing what's output. My string and my int are equal. My string and my int are not equal, but let's take a look again. They're not considered equal because one, even though they're both 5, one's considered a string, one's an int. We want to, of course, regard them as equivalent, so we're going to cast them. If we go back to the code, what we can see what we've done here is we're doing if my string equals my int cast to a string, then show they're equal or not. And you can see that after I cast it to a string, they are considered equal. So again, in this little demo, and you should really look at this code, I've shown you how to define variables in Python, pass those in your views to your templates, display those variables in your templates, iterate through those variables if they're lists, how to iterate through them if they're lists of dictionaries, and access individual key value pairs in those dictionaries. I've shown you a bit about how to create simple macros, and how to sort a list in different ways using a filter, and then how to cast variables from strings into integers, and vice versa using Jinja 2 filters. In the place you're actually going to create the gradebook, you can use the same code base that I provided to you in the zip, and you're going to put them on this grades page. And on this grades page, which is itself a template, I'm actually passing in some of the variables that you're going to need to work with already. So let's look at the view associated with that. Go back to my app. And here we have the grades page. I'm passing in to you a list of dictionaries. Then that's my person list. I should probably call that my person grade list. And then a column, sort name column right here. And let's look at how this actually works on the page right now. If we go back to the page, we have 2 links on that page, and let's see how these are defined actually. If we go to the actual page, the grades page, we have 2 links, and we're using the same URL_for syntax to actually have Jinja 2 create the URL for us. But notice that we've added this extra parameter. Here I've added a parameter called column name equals name or column name equals grade. And if we look at how these render on the actual page, you'll see that if you go down, look right down here at the bottom here, at this corner, see how it says grades/name or grades/grade. If we toggle between these, at the top we get grades.name, or here we get grades.grade. And each time I do this, the that particular, I call it a parameter, or that part of the URL is actually being passed from the view back into the actual template, and it's being displayed here in the column name. And you'll want to use that so that when you're sorting by name, the user clicks on this particular URL, and then you use this parameter to sort by name. Or if you want to sort by grade, the user would, click on this parameter or this URL, and then you would use the parameter to signal the page to sort by grade. Let's actually just look finally at this view, how it's actually defined, because the view is a little more complex than any view we've seen before, not a lot more. But notice that to be able to pass those parameters around, like up here we have just a simpler route right here, grades, but here we've specified this additional syntax here, which is basically saying to Flask, associate this particular route if it has the grades prefix, and then anything after that, then pass to this particular route. And then whatever is after that in the route, in this case it's going to be name or grade, gets passed into as a parameter into the view, into the function, and then we can access that parameter column name here, and then I'm just passing that parameter back into the page with this with this syntax here. So to access in the page, we actually just do a double braces column sort name. Let's look again at page to verify that, or at grades. And you can see it should be, right here, the column sort name. Okay, so with all these tools, you should be able to create that gradebook. And that gradebook should look like this, like it's in the assignment. I show you how it should look. See, the user's clicking on names or clicking on grade, and it's sorting, and then you get this these things highlighted if they're below a particular score.